co-chairs, and you just gotta say, excuse me.
Yeah, one more time. No dumping Bolton! I like that. Environmental rights, and some other members of our group are here. Heather Doig, stand up, Heather. Laura Parsons, Katie McKee, Beth Clark, and Delma Dan Feldman. I didn't think so. Yesterday's disposal techniques instead of today's available technology will result in this: poisoned air and poisoned water. And why? So the government can make a profit while poisoning our community. And all they see is a $20 per ton profit on their tipping fees. All my generation will see is a poisoned community. Why poison this? The headwaters of the Humber River, and thereby poison the drinking water of millions of residents of Bolton, Toronto, and all our neighbors south of us. Yeah. We're not going to give up easily. To start off tonight, I just want to, the DARE business area of the impact area, because I think that that's what we're all concerned about. They seem to think that the only impact that's going to be felt is within these magical little 500 and 1,000 meter lines. We all know that it's impacted an entire community, and what we expect to achieve during the next 6 weeks is to show them the impact that it'll have on the community. So, for the next week, our first meeting will be in paper. There'll be 2 weeks, so there'll be lots of advertising. And the first meeting is for all of your input. And then the second meeting, depending on the input that we get, we'll get more input, but we'll also be coming back to you with the ideas that are coming out that we'll probably be going forward with. And then there will be a report at the end. Who knows what the report will be, but I would say that the one thing that we do want to prove is that Bolton is a community and they are part of the impact area.
I suggest to you that Lyn McLeod is one of the new ilk of politicians. Lyn McLeod will not commit to you to do something that she knows she can't deliver on. When Lyn tells you she'll do something, it's because she has studied it, she has talked with people about it, and then she has made a decision that she will carry it through. And for that reason, I have supported her and will continue to do so. I want you to, the leader of the Ontario Liberal Party, my leader, please welcome her, Lyn McLeod.
Thank you very much, Mavis. I appreciate your introduction. I appreciate the opportunity, Mavis and Nancy, and from all of you, the invitation to share a few words with you tonight about what can only be described as the NDP government's absolutely disastrous policy on dumps and waste management. I welcome the opportunity to be with you tonight. I can't say that I welcome the reason that brings you all together. It was, I guess, about 18 months ago that I was here in the Caledon area touring some of what were then the potential dump sites and sharing with you, so many of the residents of the Caledon area that were gathered, the concerns that you had about the IWA process. And so it's with a great deal of shared. It was flawed because the government decided that it was going to take away the responsibility for carrying out comprehensive waste management planning from the regions. And it was flawed because as the government took away that responsibility that the regions had to put together a comprehensive waste management plan, it also refused with what I believe were ideological blinders on to allow any of the alternatives to megadumps to even be considered. The IWA process has done absolutely nothing in the last 2 years to restore people's confidence that sound environmental planning was in fact being done, that the best alternative would indeed be chosen. I don't think I need to remind any of the people who are here in this room tonight of all that you have been through with the IWA, is whether a megadump is the only or the best way to manage our garbage at all. In 1990, Bob Rae promised that there would be no dump sites chosen without a full environmental assessment process. I believe that Bob Rae has broken that promise because a full environmental assessment means looking at all the alternatives. And I share your frustration with a government that refuses to consider the alternatives to megadumps, refuses even to assess their economic or their environmental viability. I can promise you tonight that a Liberal government under my leadership would restore the environmental assessment process that would allow all the options, including incineration, energy from waste, and including transportation, to be fully and fairly examined as legitimate options. And I also share what I have heard WA and the Waste Management Act to put back in place a process that does not ignore the concerns of local residents. I just want to end my remarks by congratulating all of you for being here this evening, for your determination. You have proven tonight that this is not just a NIMBY syndrome, that you are concerned about whether or not the best decisions for the management of waste for your region are being made and whether those decisions are environmentally sound. And I congratulate you for that. I urge you to continue to support DARE and to support their efforts in making sure that those concerns are being addressed. You've come together to fight a bad process. I urge you to stay together to fight a bad process, and I promise you our full support. Thank you very much for giving me a chance to do that.
integrity, and honesty. Therefore, Mrs. McLeod, my question to you is, should the Liberal Party form the next provincial government, what guarantee will you give to the citizens of Caledon that there will be no Megadump at site C34B or surrounding area?
I would guarantee that there would not be a dump on that particular site. The reason I can't tell you exactly that is because of something that Mavis said that I believe very strongly, and that's that there is integrity in this issue. And what I have been saying for 2 years now, and the consistency and integrity of the commitment I make to you tonight is attested to by the fact that I have been saying the same thing for 2 years, is that I believe in a full, fair, thorough process with all of the alternatives on the table. And I absolutely refuse to lead a government which arbitrarily takes the alternatives off the table and jeopardizes a full and fair environmental assessment process. So for me to arbitrarily remove any of the options, including specific sites, would be a violation of my commitment to that full and fair process. But I can absolutely guarantee you that that full and fair process would be put in place, that all the alternatives would be on the table. And I guess I would ask the people here tonight, we've heard a number of presenters who have raised their concerns about the environmental impact of this particular dump on this particular site. I think that the people in this room would be more than ready to have the options put in front of an environmental assessment process and have confidence in the kind of decision that would be made there, as long as that process was indeed one that could consider the other alternatives. And that's the commitment I make to you tonight, that that's the kind of process we would support.
Eliminate Megadump as an option for waste disposal, and he went on public record as saying that the PCs would, and they put that right as part of the next election. Now, why should we vote for you on this issue when the PCs are willing to go on record as saying they will eliminate dumps?
Answers. But one of the reasons that we're still not satisfied with the alternatives that are being looked at is because the government has made arbitrary ideological decisions about what is right and what is wrong and what is best. And my commitment to you, and I believe it's an important commitment to make, is that I will not lead a government that makes those kinds of arbitrary ideological decisions. And that's why I will not move from being critical of one government making a particular decision to being equally arbitrary without going through a full and fair process tonight.
Well, Ms. McLeod, I think we are available, and we know there are. Why not just say there will be no Megadump? It either is or it isn't. Yes or no?
I've made my position, I think, abundantly clear for you. And I think that the people in this room would tell you that their belief, based on what they've been hearing, based on the information that they've been getting, is that other alternatives would be put forward. Question is answered.
No, it wasn't. Double talk. You're beating around the bush. So the question's been answered. That's a liberal beating around the bush. Come on. Yes or no?
Mr. Brown, I appreciate your honesty. However, I don't think anybody here feels comfortable that a liberal alternative is going to solve our problem as far as Megadump is concerned.
That a Megadump repeal would survive the test, and this basically is the reason. We have to consider that we're in Peel and not elsewhere. And Peel has two very significant geological limitations called the Oak Ridges Moraine and the Niagara Escarpment, neither one of which is suitable for a landfill site. The rest of the Peel Plain is principally covered by two large cities. So the only area that could be studied is the relatively narrow band of land between those two geographic and hydrogeological limiters, the Oak Ridges Moraine and the
I wish that we could.
Can you tell me what you're doing here?
We tried.
Tonight, Dara has invited Lyn McLeod to represent the Liberal position on how they would deal with waste management in Ontario in the future, because we all assume that either the Liberals or the Conservatives will be the ones to deal with in the waste management area following 1995.
From the feedback you're getting here tonight, do you feel it's based liberal?
We currently have a sitting member that is a Tory, and we did have a Liberal member, so we're what's called a swing riding, so we want to put our bets on both horses.
Can you tell me about the drilling?
The drilling is quite extensive. We've got 8 drill nests that'll be on site and 8 drill nests that'll be off site, and that means anywhere from 3 to 5 wells in each of those 8 nests, or 16 in total, so it's quite extensive.
I heard that there was going to be an increase in traffic, trucks, that type of thing. How will that affect?
We're talking about 700 trucks per day, 2 ways. So it's 1,400 trips a day in a community that is a rural community. It's currently a gravel road, a 2-lane gravel road that they're going to put 1,500 large truck trips a day up.
Have you allowed the IWA onto the site yet?
No, the IWA have not, but well, they were onto the site for 1 day, and once we discovered that they had come onto the site without prior notification to the community, we stopped them. And so we were out there and physically stopped them from going onto the site. It's through the sheer will and determination of this community to keep them off the site that they're still off the site 7 weeks later.
Yeah, legally they have the right to be on there. What's keeping them off?
The sheer will and determination of the community, because they haven't informed and they haven't protected this community. And if they want a fair and equitable process, we're going to get them to commit to a fair and equitable process.
That this is something you do not believe is right, that you're going to fight it with the kind of evidence that I heard presented from people in this
Tell me a
room
little bit
earlier
more about the
tonight.
meeting here tonight.
And that surely
Right, the meeting here tonight, I think it's important that we have both the Liberals and the Conservatives come in and state their platforms. So tonight the invitation was made to Lyn McLeod. We'll also have Mike Harris come into the community and give the same for the Conservatives. Because it's very important that we understand how waste management will be dealt with by both the Liberals and the Conservatives. We're obviously not happy with the NDP, so it's important to know what the alternatives are. And both parties make it very clear that all the alternatives will be on the table and that they will look at a proper waste management scheme for Ontario. Because right now we've only got two alternatives being put forward: recycling and landfill. And landfill is archaic. It's a thing of the past, and we've got to make sure we go into the future and start to look at things like export and incineration.
Tell me about the Brampton site.
The Brampton sites, we had a meeting last week, and the Brampton sites were eliminated back in September. The Brampton sites were taken off on a Hydro-G decision, and that decision was that they couldn't monitor leachate going into the saline level just above the bedrock. A saline solution. Now you tell me if you want to measure leachate going into a saline solution, or do you want to measure leachate going into a freshwater aquifer? I have a major concern about allowing a leachate to go into a freshwater aquifer in order to be monitored. But instead, the IWA took 3 Brampton sites off the list because they couldn't monitor leachate going into a saline solution. It's a pretty scary decision that was made. Not only did they do that, but back in September they took them off the list, and then in October they went out and offered each and every one of those landowners and tenants $1,000 signing bonuses to gain access to those properties that were no longer even under consideration. This they call fair and equitable. This I call totally fiscally irresponsible.
Have they offered bonuses to the people in the local area here?
Bonuses were offered to all of the 5 sites.
And what happened with the bonuses?
Some of them were accepted. A lot of people accepted them on the premise that they will now donate them to DARE because DARE needs funding. So a lot of people did accept them, but it was to create funding for DARE.
Doesn't that put them in a bit of a bind?
Yes, this whole process is a very awkward kind of process. It puts neighbor against neighbor. Yeah.
Obviously, you've had some time to talk with Lyn confidentially or on your own,
Yes.
privately. What kind of feeling do you get from her?
I'm very impressed with Lyn. Her sense of commitment to community, to family, to morals. I mean, she takes a great deal of time and thinks things through. So the people may not be getting the answers they want tonight, but the answers they're getting are honest, very forthright, very committed answers. And that's an important thing, to give a committed answer instead of a very flippant 2-second clip. So the lady that you're seeing here tonight is giving very committed answers, and that's a very important thing. She will not go back on a commitment that she makes tonight. The commitments that she's making tonight are very thorough and thought out.
If she were in power, she said that it would go through a fair and equitable process.
Correct.
If a fair and equitable process determined that a dump site be put here, how would you then feel?
A fair and equitable process would not put a landfill site above an aquifer. A landfill site above an aquifer is an environmental disaster waiting to happen. I feel very confident that even with the current environmental assessment process, that C34B will not be approved. So in a fair and equitable process, they wouldn't even get to an environmental assessment.
Are you still sure?
Yes, definitely.
Remind people that the NDP government was elected with 37.8% of the vote. And everybody here seems to think that Bob Rae is dead meat. We represent 1 seat here, so let's not get too complacent.
Are you going to be the questioner?
A couple of questions. Lyn, what brings you here tonight?
I am back in the Caledon area as I was here 18 months ago because I want to share the concerns of people about a very flawed process for identifying a dump site in the Caledon area. People here are tremendously frustrated and tremendously anxious about a decision that they just don't feel makes sense.
You've had some kind of study done. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Are you probably referring to the cancer care study, which was referenced tonight? Of course, we undertook to look at the whole question of access to cancer care. Tonight there was a reference made to the fact that there is a growing incidence of cancer, and I think the issue that was being raised was what are the causes of that, and it added to the sense that we have to be concerned about environmental protection, and that's one of the underlying issues here tonight, is how good are the decisions that are being made about waste management from an environmental perspective.
And how good are they as far as you're concerned with the Bob Rae government?
Well, I don't believe that you can be sure that there are good environmental decisions being made when there is not a full, thorough environmental assessment process in place. And you can't have a full environmental assessment process unless you are prepared to look at all of the alternatives. The Rae government, when it comes to waste management, has taken alternatives of energy from waste incineration and transportation right off the table. And there are certainly a great many people who feel that those are legitimate alternatives, environmentally sound alternatives, and they should be looked at.
And how would you and your government do it alternatively?
We have said very clearly all along that we believe that we need to scrap the Interim Waste Authority. It should never have been set up in the first place. We need to scrap the Waste Management Act that the New Democrats have passed. We need to go back to a regional planning process. We need to have all of the alternatives on the table so that they can develop a comprehensive waste management plan, and we can then go through a full and a fair environmental assessment process.
I heard you say that a fair and equitable process would be performed, and again, that's what you're saying. Do you think that's what the people here tonight came out to hear?
I believe that the people who came out here tonight are tremendously concerned about the identification of a dump site which doesn't make sense to them from an environmental perspective. It doesn't make sense to them in terms of the impact it's going to have on their neighborhood, but they also don't believe it's the result of a sound decision-making process. I think the people here tonight would believe that this decision makes so little sense that if there was a full and fair process in place, that the region would come to a different conclusion, and a different conclusion would be seen to be the best option.
And so, in a manner of speaking, that's what you and your government will perform.
Absolutely. We've got to ensure that we have the processes in place for sound planning and for an environmental assessment review that guarantees that the decisions that we're making are sound from both an economic and an environmental perspective. Absolutely critical that we get back to that kind of sound and sensible decision-making process, and that's not been in place for the last 2 years.
What would you say Bob Rae's biggest mistake in this process has been?
There is no question in my mind that the Rae government came into this whole issue of waste management with ideological blinders on. They did not believe that there should be any incineration, any energy from waste alternative considered. They were not prepared to see any waste transported out of an area, so the idea of a willing host community was not something they were prepared to have on the table. Then they took all of the decision-making responsibility away from the local level, where I believe the best plans can be put in place.
And where does your involvement go from here?
Well, we have been fighting this issue for 2 years now. We've been consistent in saying what we believe is a better process. We've not been able to persuade the government, even with all of the concerned citizens' responses, that they should stop this very flawed process. We will continue to voice our concerns. We'll continue to support the residents' groups that are voicing their concerns, and given an opportunity as a new government to stop this process and put a better process in place, we'll do that as quickly as possible.